Hi and welcome to the 64 Doors. Today we're going to open door 57. Here we find intuitive. This is an archetype that is all about getting clarity through the body and sensing the truth. We're going to explore this archetype from a human design perspective and a gene key perspective. Here we have the rave mandala with all the gates and all the astrological signs. Right now we have the sun in Libra in gate 57, we have the earth in Aries in gate 51, and the design part of the cross is the 54 in Capricorn and the 53 in Cancer. The incarnation cross is the same thing as the activation sequence in the gene keys. If you are born with the sun in the 57, you're going to have one of three incarnation crosses: the cross of penetration, the cross of intuition, the cross of clarion. You're also going to see that the design part is going to be different. This is because the cross is not a 90-degree angle, it's an 88-degree angle. And my advice is to learn about all these gates or gene keys separately and create your own story. Of course, you can learn about your cross and see how it relates to your life, but it would be a little bit too narrow to say that this is your destiny, because we're all so unique, right? If we go back to the body graph and look at the standard view, we see that the 57 comes from the splenic center. And it's one of those gates that we're going through now for many transits. We're going through the instinctual and senses gates that are all in the splenic center. So this time of the year is kind of tuning back into the body, into the senses, into our animal truth, actually. And the 57 is special because it's connecting to the 34 in the sacral. It's also connecting to the 10 in the G and to the 20 in the throat center. This is what we call the integration circuitry. In the circuitry book, we have an explanation, the integration channels. So it's about individuation, and there are 4 channels: the channel of awakening, the channel of charisma, the channel of power, and the channel of perfected form. And here it says the integration channels are what makes us selfish, therefore ensuring our individual survival. Selfishness is actually good for the genes, since if we didn't look after ourselves first, our species would soon die out. People with definition in these channels are here to display self-love by putting themselves first. This is exemplified by: I love myself, gate 10, and I empower myself, gate 34, by listening to my intuition, gate 57, in the now, gate 20. We can also look at it from an integral human design perspective. So here we see all the channels in the integration circuitry that actually have the 57. And what they're called here is self-awareness, power, and awareness. I also like that we are seeing this frequency band, and this is something you can use for contemplation. So in the 34, 57, brutality, power, essence. So you could look at the shadow of the 34, which is forcing, and the 57, which is unease. And forcing and unease together is brutality. Or you could think about the splenic center together with the power of the sacral, looking at where they come from. That can become brutality. The same thing with the 10 and the 57, the splenic and the G. So panic and self-awareness and elegance. And with the throat center and the splenic center, obscurity, awareness, and affinity. This is really something that we could go deeper in and really contemplate and see how much intelligence, I would say, that we have in these 3 channels. And the spleen is about intuition, alarm, intuition, presence. Super, super good description. So let's go into the 57 from a gene key perspective. Really, this is part of the codon ring of matter, and it is the gene key that is coding the core wound. So in one sense, we could say that this is the most important gene keys of all the gene keys. It is funny because for me, it's the core wound. So it's like that key that is programming the core wound is my core wound. I also happen to know that it's Richard Rudd's core wound and it's Rosie Aronson's core wound. There is something with the gene keys where this seem to be very important and also a very big challenge. The core wound is, we are speaking about the 9 months of gestation before we get born. So the 3 trimesters in the mother's womb. And it is an auditory experience, because we, as we are there, we can hear. That's the first thing that is developed. We can hear everything that's going on around us. So it's about this auditory intuition. And it's also about the fear of what's coming, because I think we can feel it already before we're born, that there is something outside that warm, watery thing that we're floating around in. So that's very much what the 57 is. It is that kind of fear, even panic, uncertainty of what's coming, in the frequency band, the low frequencies, unease and agitation. That's part of that cross we were looking at in the beginning. The higher frequencies, intuition and initiative, and the very highest frequencies, the awakening and the clarity. We can also see that, as I was saying, we're in the splenic center in the transits, and we're going through these developmental cycles. So the 18 was programming our IQ. That's a 14 to 21 years old cycle. Then we had a 48 that is programming the EQ, which is the 7 to 14 year cycle, and the emotional body. And then the 46 is programming the physical body, and is the 0 to 7 year old. So we're really speaking about those phases. And the 57 is even before that, even before we are born. In the I Ching, this is the gentle wind, and it's one of those elementary hexagrams that are made up of 2 trigrams of the same element. So here we're not going to have a geometry. You know, I usually speak about, oh, it's this over this, but here it's just a gentle wind. So the subtle yet penetrating spirals of life, a clear mind moves through any obstacle. And it says, clarity is empty sky, intuition trusts the whispering wind, unease fears the coming storm. And I can kind of feel in a lot to this, because in my life, my life cycle right now is the cross of penetration, which is one of the crosses that we looked at. So it has the 57 and the 51 in it. And in my normal chart, I have the 25, which is also the harmonic gate for the 51. So I feel like a lot of the 51's energy has been there for me. There have been a lot of shock in my life. And I also feel like I have needed to really kind of feel, I have needed to have that. I do have the 46, I have the 25 as my IQ and my EQ. There is a lot of constriction in that 25. And it was almost like, in order to awaken, in order to come back to the warmth of what it is to be human, I needed to have the 51. So I can say, when I was younger, it was hard for me to feel. No, it wasn't so hard to feel. It was hard for me to really appreciate the whispering wind. It was kind of, I needed to feel the warmth of passion. I needed something more to feel. And the more that I've been reclaiming parts of myself and walking back in the Venus sequence and that trinity of embodiment of the IQ, the EQ, and the SQ, I have been able to feel and appreciate more than anything that gentle wind and the feather-like sensations, which I feel has to do with that splenic center a lot. And I have a lot of activations in there. I actually have the channel 3457, the channel of power, twice. And I guess that in a low frequency as well, with that forcing in the 34, when you're forcing, when you're in the low frequency of unease and force, you kind of don't want to feel, and it takes a lot to actually truly feel. And unease fears the coming storm. Yeah, I guess that there is this inherent, almost maybe unconscious feeling of not really being safe. That's very much the core wound of humanity, whether we have the 57 there or not. It's that uncertainty, which I feel we can feel even more now. Like that's what's going on, and I believe that that's going to be more of what's coming. And that's also why the 57 with the 34, for example, is going to show the way for how to live in with things we haven't experienced. So it's a little bit thinking back of the tsunami, for example, in Thailand, that we had the animals that were already leaving the coast because they felt that they were hearing with their bodies that something was coming. And I believe that that's what the human being needs to come back to be able to sense. And the people who have that sensitivity are going to be role models in how to survive in the world as we are changing into something new. So yeah, if we go to astrology, we are still in Libra, so it's going to take collaboration and connection to walk into the new world that we're creating together. And it's cardinal air, so there's something new here. And partner, peace bringer, and diplomat are the keywords for Libra. The dream arc, the bat, I had forgotten about that. The toad and the blackbird. The city. It's a little bit complex. This is the city of clarity. And another thing is clarity. And I'm not only speaking about clarity as a civic frequency, but also clarity in a kind of mundane, everyday sense. My true clarity hasn't come until I have been able to tune into my intuition and actually really trust it. That's when I see that the trajectory of my life is making sense. So with the 57, really, really the key is to trust our intuition. And I would say, even if it's in an open center, some people have asked me, okay, but I have the 57 in an open center. Does that mean I can't trust my intuition? No, it doesn't matter. And that's why I like the gene keys, because we're not speaking about open centers or defined centers. If you have the 57, I would say it's always so important. If it's in an open center, maybe you want to make sure that whatever is around you is not completely conditioning you in one direction or another. For me, this is a week to really, really check in with your intuition, if it has its say or not. It's also a week to check in with the fear, especially the fear of tomorrow. Are the things that you're not doing because of the fear of what's going to happen? It's also a week to look at the agitation that you might feel with the uncertainty that is in the air right now, and somehow tune into the fact that human beings have never known about tomorrow. It's actually not just something that's happening right now. It's been like that, probably worse than now before. And I'm thinking back just to like the Second World War or the 100 years back, and I feel like there was even more uncertainty. And now at least we have different ways of trying to get information, although there are of course a lot of things out there that don't tell the truth. But we have this ability to kind of know what's going on, or to travel to places and see what's going on. There is much more easy than before. So in some senses, we know more today, and we can predict more today than ever before, I would say. And I guess it's also a week to look at at your anxiety and your worries, and to start to parent yourself. This is what the cornering of matter is about. If you were your own parent and you had those thoughts and those anxieties, like what would be the attitude as your own parent that you would help yourself to have? You know, to start to say you can trust your intuition, and there is clarity, and all these things, and look at your SQ as well to see what was it that the child really needed once it came into the world, and start to parent yourself with an attitude that is not completely pessimistic, that is not making those worries and anxieties worse. So yeah, I wish you all a good week, and a week where you are maybe knocking on the door to that human core wound that we all came here to help to transcend. Thank you.